We are out of executive session. Welcome back. We have no action to take from executive session, so we are on to our agenda item of for the good of the order. Commissioners, what do you have for us today?
Mr. Chairman,
Okay, Commissioner Tillman.
I would just like to thank the voters for turning out and voting, and special thanks for our special 6 penny. I would just like to ask all of our partners, our community partners, to please consider bidding to local contractors, hiring local people, and collecting local sales tax. So let's leverage our 6 penny as many times as we can to help our county. Thank you.
Great
Woohoo.
point. Great point. Thank you. Anything else for the good of the order?
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner Lloyd.
segue from what Commissioner Thomas said, I want to specifically thank, according to the election, the clerk's office. They had some hurdles and obstacles that were thrown at them throughout the night, but I think they did a great job in getting throughout the night and having a solid election. To me, that seemed full of integrity and good work. So work to the clerk's. Big thanks to the clerk's office is what I would like to. That's my only concepts today.
Good job. Woot, woot. Anything else for the good of the order?
Motion.
All right, with that, then I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So move.
Oh,
What happened?
go ahead. That's right. Our clerk was going to give us a recap of the election that we just spoke of. Yes, so I apologize. I was so excited.
Oh, thank you, Chairman. I just wanted to thank all of you too for all of your support of me during this election day. That it was, we did have a few hiccups throughout it, but we did get those taken care of. And I just wanted to let you know that we had 12,161 voters come out to the polls and vote. We are having increasingly larger numbers come out to the polling locations and to our early vote center that we hold here, and in our absentee voting requests, ballot requests. So we did have over 1,900 that came in through the mail and a little over 1,000 that came into the courthouse. So I appreciate that. And I know they are looking at legislation to possibly allow us to have the early voting, maybe not as long as the 45 days that's required right now. So I'm excited about that and hoping that if that comes out, that we would see some support for that. So we do not have to have it for quite as long and disrupt the office for quite as long. But if not, that's how we'll do it, because people do seem to enjoy it. So I just wanted to let you know that the election was certified on Thursday afternoon by the Canvas Board, and that was all sent into the state of Wyoming, who holds their state Canvas Board tomorrow. So we will get all of that done and certified by the end of the month, and we'll go from there. And hopefully don't do this again for 2 years. Oh, I also wanted to let you know that I appreciate the money that you gave us for the new e-poll books. However, they were not able to get us enough of them. So we did scrape by and had enough, just barely, to have them at our polling locations. But if it's all right with you, I mean, because the money's in the budget, I will be purchasing those towards the end of the budget year. So we have time to get them. They're not looking at a newer version. So we'll be able to get them and get trained on them and be ready for the next election. That'll give us more time for training and not rush through them.
Good, good.
So I just wanted to update you on that.
How many absentee ballots were returned compared to how many were sent out?
I don't have that right off the top of my head, but I know we sent out a little over 2,000. So I think we got most of them back.
Great.
We've seen less coming in late than we did with the primary.
Nice.
So
Thank you. Any questions, comments?
You can't count them if they come in late.
no, we cannot. We do bank them in. We call it banking in with a little UPC code, so that voter does get credit. They did try to vote. They did ask for that and it comes back in. However, they are not counted in the process. We did have one race that was affected by write-in, and that was the mayor of Granger. So the person who was on the ballot received 14 votes, and Mr. Valerio received 21 or 22. So he did accept that nomination as mayor of Granger. So that is the only one that was affected by write-in.
The water district too, right?
A lot of those were just if there was it didn't take somebody off of the ballot as winning, it just added to it. So if it was vote for 3 and only 2 people ran, then a write-in is then looked at and they can come and accept nomination for that 3rd place. But that was the Granger mayor was the only race that was affected by the write-in vote. So
Very good.
that did happen. All right, thank you.
Thank you. With that, I will
Mr. Chairman,
entertain Commissioner
yeah,
Wendling.
when Clerk Lane came up, I checked my email and I got an email from Jeremiah. The Legislative Committee, of course, meets, or Revenue Committee meets next week, 21st, 22nd, in Cheyenne. But I'll be having a phone conversation this Thursday on the Revenue Committee regarding revenue topics for discussion as the 988 suicide prevention, property tax issues, state lands, governmental tax exemptions, and skilled-based amusement games. So it's kind of interesting that, you know, there's some good topics there, but not some high questions. But anyhow, I just wanted to share that with you. That'll take place tomorrow, Thursday, the 17th. I'll be on that call with them, with the committee.
Excellent.
Yep, thank you. Sorry.
No worries. Thank you. With that, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Thank you. We are adjourned and we'll move into our policy and procedure workshop. Mr. McLean.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, County Commissioners. I'd like to, if it's your pleasure, to start off with a policy since it's legislative season's getting underway. One of the policies that we have not really addressed in here, it probably fits best in Chapter 8. So I had to send it out separate so that we could talk about it, is the policy relative to employees serving in the Wyoming State Legislature. I think most of us have experienced and talked about this side of the state. Sometimes takes a bad rap because we're not as close and as involved in some of the committees and things as we'd like. And so, I think the serving the Wyoming Legislature, especially having an employee doing that, is super important. And the policy that existed previously was kind of vague in that regard. And so I'd like to, if we can, talk about that one first, and then we'll move on to 9, 10, and 11. That would be okay.
Good with me.
So I'm just going to hit a couple of the important provisions here of the proposed policy, but essentially what the policy is for employees being in the legislature is that they receive a variety of compensation from the state when they serve. They receive a salary, they receive a per diem, they receive travel expenses. And so obviously, one of the things that this policy attempts to do is basically keep people whole. So if an individual serving in the legislature, they'll continue to receive their normal salary and will be responsible to return back to the county any salary that they receive for being in the legislature. One of the things that's important here, there was actually, if you recall, some legislators that testified to this, that when they get put on leave, sometimes it puts their health insurance in jeopardy because you're in an inactive status. Number one, I think this does not come up very often. I think we've only had 2, maybe 3 since I've worked for the county. And so I think that there's a lot of travel and time involved both in and out of work, as you know. And so this policy basically says that any of the expense reimbursements they receive for travel or the per diem are theirs. The salary they receive will go back to us. Each month they would have to give us their statement or what have you to verify that payroll statement. And then they would receive their normal salary, kind of similar to what we do with jury leave. Folks that are on jury leave, we do something similar with them. And so I wanted to make sure, moving forth, if this is the board's sentiment on this, I will tell you the state's policy is you're on an unpaid leave when you serve in the legislature. Yeah, and there are several other counties who have that policy. There are others who have something similar to this. So I just wanted, if there's any questions, to talk about this, but my personal feeling was that I think it's super valuable to have folks who are willing to serve and be aggressive. And I think to make that hurdle or impediment, or for them to suffer personal damage in order to do that, as you'll know, especially during COVID and other times, there are gateway to the legislature, there are gateway to information, there are gateway to forthcoming bills. So I can't see anything but positive and encouraging folks to be participative. Obviously, what it probably isn't fair is that it becomes a financial incentive where they would double dip. So the salary portion, which is very minor, that they receive while at the legislature, would come back to us in exchange for us keeping them, obviously, their health insurance.
What if there's been talk about, a raise for the legislature? What if their pay there exceeds here?
Yeah, then I think if that were to happen, I don't think we're going to be close, but if that were going to happen, then I think we would want to, revisit that and give them the choice. But
all right.
Yeah, I don't see,
I don't.
I think we're a ways off for that, but
Change much. For the most part, it's just expense money,
yeah.
travel money,
The per diem,
per diem, and not much in there to pay them to do the work.
No. You get a little bit of money for committees. So if you're on a committee, like right now, if you start up some of the committees and they would meet, obviously a lot of that's happening Zoom, but some of the committees meet. You've got that, you've got the per diem amount, obviously that's covering mostly housing, that hasn't increased. As you know, if you can find a place to stay for, what is it, $150 a day, you're doing better than I am.
meals.
Yeah. So.
Good. Any other questions for chapter 8? Yeah. Appreciate that. All right.
Anyway, if we have any, if you want to take a look at that or have any additional thoughts on that, but I'd like to include that in chapter 8. And if there's no modifications, then we'll go as is, but please let me know with that.
Thank you.
The next 3 sections are chapter 9, 10, and 11. Some of these 10 in particular, we've addressed previously, and there's not a lot to report on that. 9 in particular is a layoff recall section. Fortunately, we haven't had to do that, and that's kind of minor. I will tell you, however, when we started 10, 11, 12 years ago, the early separation programs, when things started to come off the peak of the economic development, we reduced some of those positions, and several of our neighboring counties had to do this. Carbon County did this, City of Cheyenne and Laramie County had to do this. They had layoff numbers between 20 and 50 people in there. So I'm pretty happy of the fact that we were able to negotiate that period by getting some of the numbers down before, the economic circumstances got so low that you had to take those actions. And I think one of the things that management always gets a bad rap for is not anticipating something that we know is going to happen. And we've all been here long enough to know when we're up here that we're going to be down at some point, and we need to take some actions to bring those in alignment. I think we did a pretty good job of that, and we did not have to use any of that. So I don't really have any changes in chapter 9 unless there's any questions that you have.
Any questions for Gary?
Chapter 10, again, this is one that we addressed several months ago, early on in this process. In fact, just about a year ago, I guess on 10-5, we addressed some of the complaint and grievance procedures. And so I don't have anything really more to add that unless you guys have some things you'd like to see addressed in chapter 10. Yeah.
We thoroughly did that one.
Any questions there? All right.
So
Number 11.
chapter 11 is very apropos. We just had some discussions about the PIO. This chapter has a lot to do with dissemination of information and communications. This is getting to be more and more and more and more important because we have so many ways for things to get out. We've dealt in the last 2 years in various departments and elected offices of the county with information that has been inappropriately disclosed to other law enforcement agencies or defendants or to people without going through some process. And so there's a couple things that we're trying to do here. One is to address that the information that we gain as being part of the county organization is not for people to use for private purposes. So you've probably read some of the newspaper articles where people have used their organizational list to send out religious communications or political communications or what have you. So
Use it for Tupperware. That's it.
that's right.
Yeah.
Use it for your Tupperware sales.
Yep.
So it's an attempt to address that. I think this is getting to be more and more important because of things like the publishing of the salaries. You starting to see people taking that information and personal information and phone numbers and that, and pretty soon they've got a credit card in their name. They've got passwords, your other thing. And so we're trying just to be clear that the information from the county is the county's information. There may be public information, but someone has to make that determination. And that's generally not just anybody, whether it's public or not, will go through a process of whoever the custodian is, the county elected official or the whoever's appropriate to make that determination. And so that's one of the things. It's also, I think, and we've been pretty fortunate here, although we've had a few where people on fires and police accidents start sharing information for their personal benefit, right? Photos of accident scenes and stuff like that. And that's always a problematic people in jails and in law enforcement capacity. So we want to try to hem that in as well as we can. One of the things that's not in here, and I sent you some information that I would like to make sure that we give proper thought to and we address at the next meeting that's part of this, is about the use of social media. And so I sent you some information in the packet. This is Mountain State's information, which is primarily sort of the legal constructs of restricting this. So this is a very complicated area, and there's a few questions that I think are going to be important that the board weigh in on. So as a baseline, it's inappropriate to use social media, personal social media, using our equipment or our time. Now, we also use social media as part of the county's communication with the public, but those are county communications, not personal communications. We do have a public side of our network. So if you today are on your phone, you're probably connecting to that public side. We don't regulate that side of it. We regulate the county network for employees. So I think one of the principles that's important, it's fairly straightforward, is you're not going to use county time or equipment for personal communications on social media. The second thing, and I've asked Tim to see if he could find us some information, but as most of you know by now, the federal government has prohibited the use of TikTok in federal offices. It can't be on laptops used on their network. The problem with that is tomorrow it's not TikTok, it's what? Take your pick, right? So I was hoping that they can come up, and Tim's going to take a look. One avenue of this is I imagine we're going to see this, if we haven't already, on some of our federal monies, that restriction will come as a condition of federal monies. The second part of that is we don't want to say get so restricted it's TikTok and tomorrow it's this and this. that somehow if it's prohibited either at the federal or through the national communication channels, that's restricted for us to use also, to have those on our network. So those are a couple things that I think are real important. Obviously, it's evolving all of the time. The part where this gets to be a little more tricky is in the freedom of speech context, right? So people that are bad mouthing elected officials or department heads or operations, and trying to be clear about where that freedom of speech boundary lies and where that's unacceptable. I think that one of the clear areas is you're not doing it on our time. We're not paying you to badmouth the organization or your boss or other things. And the second thing is you're not using our equipment, network, laptops or whatever to do that. But beyond that is some of you've seen, and we've had a few instances with employees where those discussions have resulted in problems at work. So they were the posts and communications off duty that have created on duty hardships, difficulty, interpersonal conflicts, miscommunication, so on and so forth. So I'm going to put together for the next meeting a draft policy on this, but I want you guys to really think about this. Right now, I would say this is probably the biggest deficit that we have from a policy standpoint is in this arena. And I don't want to be too prescriptive because who knows what the next communication mode and method and application is going to be. For the areas that are field oriented, obviously we give them cell phones. So they're on our thing. Obviously, we can regulate those areas. It's more the personal use within there. And as you know, with cell phones, mobile activity, you don't have to be on our network to do that. But obviously, we don't want to have paid time used for non-work related stuff. So beyond that, I'll try to get you some language that balances those things. Please be as critical as you want to because this is an important area and we need to find something that we can be comfortable with.
Questions regarding chapter 11?
Chairman,
Commissioner Wendling.
what's the policy that you're bringing forward dealing with the social networking? You don't think Dakota rings are going to come back, huh?
I think they're back. I think they're back.
Too.
Drink more Ovaltine. That's the
Yeah,
that's the secret message.
Yeah.
That's the secret message.
Yeah, I mean, there's just lots of issues. I watched I did a training last week from our risk management provider. And the number one technical risk is hacking your email. And, you know, it's the thing that we use the most. It's the people that take most for granted. But basically they're getting into your email to get your passwords, to get information that they can use other places within the organization, outside the organization. And some of these applications are used that same way. And so there is a security component also. I'm going to ask Tim to come up also when we discuss this at the next meeting. One of the other parts, and John, you and Danny might weigh in on this also, but one of the other components of this that has both real and theoretical implications are policies relative to retention of records. And when we migrated to electronic records, everybody decided, well, we'll keep them forever. But that's not cheap either. And I'm sure as if you see the requests that Tim has for storage and for those things, keeping records electronic or in paper is not free. And this may be an area that we try to develop a more comprehensive policy on, especially electronic records. and how long, and in what format. And tighten up the process as far as that goes. The state of Wyoming has a very good record retention division. They've been very helpful in discussing with department heads and elected officials recommendations or statutory requirements for record retention. But in as much as the policy is ours, I think it's important that we come to some consensus of what that's going to be, and then we can implement those standards within the computer or the electronic world, just like we're doing with paper records, because storing it costs money. So those are I guess the kind of important areas I think out of that section. Were there any questions that you guys had or comments that you would like to have more information on? I will have the best draft I can get on the social media side, but please think about that. I think that's an important one, especially in light of our previous discussion.
So how far is the end?
So I think basically at the next meeting, we should be able to finalize all of the policies. And we'll leave the last meeting in December as a catch-all in case we need to kick something, but I see no reason that we can't have those worked out. Should have most of them by the next meeting. And then just leave the last meeting in December as a catch-all if we have anything to adopt the whole thing. So that's where we're at. Okay.
I even noticed the social media, sample social media policies from 2020. So it's like,
Yeah.
I mean, it's only 2 years old and it's still.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
It's
just,
changed so much since then.
well, and that's one of the things is I think it's trying to step back and say it's not TikTok, it's stuff like TikTok. It's not Facebook, it's everything that's like that. You know, it's trying to be more inclusive, and because it's just always, I mean, that's, people make a lot of money coming up with new platforms for that. And so I think that's important. Yeah. Yeah.
Discord's the cool one with the kids now.
That's
Not
right.
Facebook's like for old people like me.
That's right.
Discord's the way to go. Great. Anything else?
Even Facebook anymore, it's just all ads, you know?
Any other questions for Gary? Comments? Appreciate the work. It's
No,
great. Thank you.
absolutely.
Yes, thank
Yep.
you very much.
With that, we'll wrap up our policy and procedure meeting then as well. And